HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Slightly Greener Method. Detoxifying your home is easier, faster, and less expensive than you think. By Tonya Harris. Read by Tonya Harris. This publication is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional service. If legal advice or other expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. From a Declaration of Principles jointly adopted by a committee of the American Bar Association and a committee of publishers and associations. This book is not intended as a substitute for medical advice from a qualified physician. The intent of this book is to provide accurate general information in regard to the subject matter covered. If medical advice or other expert help is needed, the services of an appropriate medical professional should be sought. For James, Eric, Kaylee, and Lindsay, thank you for your love, support, and encouragement, and for letting me share your stories. Author's note. The Slightly Greener Method was created to help families develop a plan for detoxifying their homes by making small changes over time. I wanted to create a blueprint to make it easier to know where to start and to avoid the overwhelming feelings we so often face when starting out on this healthier, less toxic journey. It's been developed through years of research from my own experience, getting my master's degree and client work, and it was then refined many times to help you discover which toxins to prioritize avoiding for your unique needs, since we can't avoid them all. It's the system I would have wanted when I first started out in 2006, when I felt the need to toss everything, driving my family and myself crazy. This method revolves around three main areas of the home: the kitchen, foods and beverages, bathroom, personal care products and cosmetics, and cleaning products. I believe that reducing toxins in these three areas of your home will result in the biggest changes in your toxic exposure. As you move through each area of your home and the process becomes easier, move on to the next section. Keep coming back to this book and use it as a resource, or do the method again as things change. While you're listening to this book, please keep in mind that removing toxins is just one part of a healthier lifestyle. While I believe the toxins that may be lurking in what we eat, the products we use to get ready, and the air we breathe in our homes are often a huge missing piece of the puzzle when it comes to health, it's also important to remember that being under the care of a licensed medical professional is important. The information in this book is not meant to diagnose or treat any medical conditions. Always discuss any health concerns with your doctor, and do not go off any medications without speaking to your licensed medical professional first. Throughout this book, you will also see resources and safer brands that I recommend. Because links and product ingredients change often, be sure to visit this book's website at slightlygreenerbook.com. There you will find updated information, downloadable cheat sheets, and a current list of resources and brands. And now, let's dig in and begin those first steps to a healthier home. Part 1. The challenge of detoxifying our homes. 1. Why slightly greener? You've probably seen headlines like, "Toxins are all around us," on the news or in your Facebook feed. Although most of those articles are clickbait backed by dubious science, their underlying message is true. Our modern world is filled with more harmful substances than ever before. But the good news is that making small changes to become slightly greener can make you and your family significantly healthier. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. This Maya Angelou quote distills the essence of the slightly greener method. I repeat it often when I teach clients how to reduce their toxin exposure, showing them how harmful chemicals can be found in nearly every product they bring into their homes, which is often quite shocking for them. Doing better refers to becoming slightly greener once you know how. It means making small changes, slowly over time, to avoid toxins in the foods you eat, the personal care products you use, and the cleaning products you buy. Notice Ms. Angelou didn't say, "Be perfect." She also didn't say, "Shame on you for not knowing earlier." When I meet someone new and explain that I teach people how to eliminate toxins for a living, they stare back at me with wide eyes. I see their fear and the thoughts racing through their mind. Please don't tell me I can give my kids cancer by feeding them hot dogs. But once I explain that small changes over time can drastically reduce overall toxin exposure, their face softens. Then I add, sticking with those changes, even just for a few days, can have a tremendous impact on your health. Now they are hanging on my every word. I go on to explain that the approach I've developed to reduce toxin exposure, the slightly greener method, is simple, inexpensive, fun, and doesn't require being a domestic diva. Then they smile. At this point, I've earned a new client or made a new friend, usually both. Toxins lurk in much of the food we feed children, as well as in personal care products like shampoo, soap, and toothpaste, even ones labeled for babies and toddlers. These chemicals can affect every aspect of kids' health and wellness, including learning and behavior. In this book, I will teach you easy tips and tricks for making your home slightly greener and your family significantly healthier in ways that will transform your life. You'll also be a bit horrified at what you learn, all the sneaky and deceptive ways toxins have crept into your home, your food, and the very air you breathe. You might scream, pull your hair out, or hurl this book so hard against the wall that the window panes shake. It's okay. After listening to this book, you won't wake up and magically have a fully detoxified, chemical-free home. You can't blink and make all the harmful toxins disappear. However, you will be more educated. And with your new knowledge, you can make small, impactful changes. With each one, you'll feel healthier. As you stick with them, you'll feel lighter and calmer too. When my clients first learn about how much gnarly stuff they've been shoveling into their mouths and slathering on their skin, they get uncomfortable, and they feel guilty. Oh no, they think, I've been pouring chemicals all over my kids, on their skin, in their mouths, and in mine. I remind them of Maya Angelou's words, when you know better, do better. If you learn anything from this book, it's that guilt can be just as toxic as hidden chemicals. I empower my clients to take back control, and I don't allow them to listen to their inner voice that says, how could you? You didn't know. I didn't either, but now we do. Rule number 1 of the slightly greener method, no guilt allowed. On my dresser at home, I have a photo of my son Eric on his first birthday. He's sitting in his high chair, all adorable, with chubby cheeks, drool on his chin. In that image, he's holding a fistful of birthday cake, preparing to cram it into his mouth. Right there, on his high chair, in huge letters across the plastic tray smothered with icing and cake, it reads, Microban. I bought that particular high chair because it was made of antibacterial plastic. No germs getting into this baby's mouth, I said. It was 1999. And back then, I had no idea that Microban is a brand name for triclosan, an endocrine disruptor. You'll learn all about endocrine disruptors, the nasty health problems they cause, and how to avoid them in this book. Back then, I didn't know. Eric wasn't eating many germs, but boy, was he shoveling harmful endocrine disruptors into his mouth by the handful. Do the best you can until you know better. As human beings, and especially as parents, most of us do what we think is right. We believe that someone out there will prevent us from bringing harmful substances into our homes. Sadly, that person doesn't exist. Many new parents think, no one would put dangerous chemicals in baby products, right? Wrong. Before I became an environmental toxin expert, I assumed someone else was taking care of it. Health food company CEOs, the FDA. What about pediatricians? They're alerting parents about the dangers they need to know about, right? Although doctors provide valuable, life-saving expertise, protecting us from dangerous chemicals and consumer products isn't always a service they provide. When was the last time your doctor said, your son is having attention issues. What kind of toothpaste does he use? Or, does he consume food that contain a lot of artificial colors? There aren't always screening questions at the pediatrician's office for environmental toxins. At least not yet. For the past 5 years, my business, Slightly Greener, has filled the void that most people, especially parents, need. I teach micro changes and habits for reducing toxins in your home without wrecking your budget, your relationships, or even your day. The key is starting small, sticking with it, and building from there. Ask anyone who knows me. I can't cook, I say, but I can whip up 22 chapsticks in 4 minutes. If I can do it, so can you. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, just outside Chicago. People from my hometown wave to one another, work hard, and enjoy life to the fullest. I apply that same Midwestern sensibility to the slightly greener lifestyle. You don't have to sacrifice happiness to be healthy. I won't ask you to throw away that giant bag of Cheetos in your pantry. If you remove all the fun from life, an occasional scoop of bright blue ice cream or spritz of your favorite perfume, then it's no longer living. But if you can buy or make healthy products 80% of the time, you can still eat hot dogs occasionally. You don't have to exist on blades of grass, organic of course, and tree bark, I promise. I'll show you how to pick and choose which products to allow in your fridge, your pantry, your medicine cabinet, and under your sink. Together we'll toss out the most harmful products in your home. The slightly greener method is like decluttering with an added health boost. Goodbye chemicals, hello health and organization. Genetics, nutritional status, and general overall health can also play powerful roles in how our bodies handle chemicals. Our general health impacts how and when we will feel the effects of toxins. If you're in good health overall, you're in a better position to process and eliminate harmful chemicals. Illness, even as mild as a cold, can decrease your tolerance to household chemicals. Stress can also affect the body's ability to handle and process toxic chemicals. I always tell clients, implement just a few small changes at a time, whichever ones feel easiest for you, and take extra good care of your health. With those two adjustments, your home and you will be healthier overall. Over time, the small changes I suggest become habits. It becomes so easy, practically automatic, to stick with it. And the benefits are huge. What are toxins really? First, let's clear up any confusion about the definition of toxins. We hear the word toxin a lot, but few people truly understand its meaning. You might be surprised to learn that most people misuse the term. A toxin is a natural poison from a biological source, like a plant or animal, such as the venom from a poisonous snake. A toxicant is an artificial substance introduced into the environment, like lead paint or formaldehyde. Both are harmful to the body, but toxins occur naturally in the environment, while toxicants are human-made. The confusion arises because most people who aren't scientists say toxin, but what they mean is toxicant. I use the word toxin myself because I think it sounds more approachable than toxicant, which sounds scientific and scary. In this book, I will use the word toxin when I refer to artificial substances because it's what we're used to hearing and because I like to remove the scare factor as much as possible. Toxins cause harm in the body, and they can affect just about every biological system: neurological, respiratory, and endocrine, to name a few. Toxins are sneaky. They can creep into our homes in so many hidden ways. Just about everything we own contains toxins: furniture, electronics, pool toys, even toothpaste. Toxins can hide in flooring, food, cleaning products. The list goes on. The good news? You don't have to get rid of them all to have a measurable effect on your health. How do toxins get into our products? Despite the fact that an overwhelming number of consumer products contain toxins, companies can slap a natural or safe label on pretty much anything. You heard that right. Any old product they please. Terms like natural aren't regulated, so it's perfectly legal to throw out a meaningless natural or dermatologist-approved label on any product and start shipping it out via Amazon to mailboxes anywhere. Remember the story of Goliath, the giant Philistine warrior who was defeated by David, the scrawny underdog? Consumers, people like you and me, are the little guy in this scenario. Most of the items we use in our homes are manufactured by multinational companies with Goliath-sized marketing budgets. They have one goal: sell stuff. Their marketing professionals craft meaningless taglines on their products like #1 pediatrician recommended. Those labels mean zilch. Even those of us who are trying to shop natural and clean might be washing our kids' hands with toxic chemicals. My clients say, "But Tonya, I shop at health food stores. They check to make sure everything is safe, right?" Wrong. If you feel duped, you're not alone. First, let's clear up what I mean by the word chemical. Just as there are naturally occurring toxins in our environment, there are also naturally occurring chemicals. In fact, just about everything is a chemical. A chemical is any substance that consists of matter. So that essentially means that anything you can touch, a liquid, a solid, or a gas. So in our natural environment, there are naturally occurring chemicals all around us. The oxygen we breathe, the water we drink, and the granite rocks we climb on when we go hiking. And even naturally occurring chemicals can be toxic. Ever heard of Botox? Of course you have. But did you know that its source is naturally occurring botulinum, one of the deadliest substances known to man? Just 1 gram of botulinum, which is produced by the bacterium Clostridium botulinum, could kill about 1 million people if it spread. The point here is that natural and artificial chemicals can cause harm or hurt. The substance isn't what determines toxicity, but rather the dose. Even water can poison us if we drink too much of it. While you might think chemical-laden products are relatively new, they've actually been around for ages. Human beings have been creating things with chemicals since about 1000 BC. By that time in our history, our forebears were fermenting beer and wine as well as extracting chemicals from plants to make medicines, soaps, and perfumes. What is new is the recent explosion of chemical production. In the last 50 years, the production of artificially made chemicals in the United States has skyrocketed. At the same time, there's been a marked increase in the incidence of conditions like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, autism, childhood cancers, diabetes, and obesity. This isn't to say that the rise in artificially made chemicals is the sole catalyst for problems in children's health, but it's interesting to note the correlation. Correlation isn't causation, of course, but as you will learn in this book, science does link certain chemicals to particular health problems. Today, there are well over 40,000 man-made chemical substances registered on the Toxic Substances Control Act, TSCA, inventory. While the TSCA is a law created to regulate harmful substances, it's been highly ineffective. Most of those registered substances, around 98%, have never been tested for safety by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. So in terms of artificial chemicals, it's like the Wild West out there. The onus is on us as consumers to ensure that what we're eating, breathing, and putting in our bodies is safe. Scientists have only begun to scratch the surface of understanding the long-term impact of chemical exposure. This brings me back to my no-guilt rule. Even scientists and professionals working at the EPA don't know everything about how chemical exposure impacts health. But the health threat from synthetic chemicals is real and backed by mounting scientific evidence. The influx of chemicals in our lives is compounded by an epidemic of misinformation. Most online information about toxicity in everyday products is dead wrong. According to a study conducted by the Credibility Coalition and published by Fast Company, 75% of the top 10 most shared health articles in 2018 contained false or misleading information and exaggerated potential dangers, according to scientists. For example, I see statements like this all the time. 26 seconds is all it takes for the chemicals in personal care products to enter your bloodstream. But that's not necessarily true. First, not all chemicals pass through the skin. For those that do, the speed at which they are absorbed and enter your bloodstream depends on a wide range of different factors, like the concentration of chemicals, where direct skin contact occurs, and how long the contact lasts. It also depends on things like the temperature of your skin and whether or not your skin is damaged. The bottom line is that it's hard to separate toxin facts from fiction. Even when an online article is backed by research, you need to dig deeper. Companies that manufacture toxic products will often fund biased studies to prove they are safe. But when was the last time you read a health article and then thought, better make sure that study was peer-reviewed? Companies that manufacture products with synthetic chemicals often claim their products are safe because they use trace amounts, and in some cases, a much higher dose was deemed safe in animal testing. But little is understood about the synergistic effects of synthetic chemicals. In other words, how they interact with one another in the moment as well as over time. According to researchers at the Institute of Environmental Medicine, it's long been known that there can be synergistic, toxic effects of supposedly safe synthetic chemicals when combined or mixed. But the full extent is often unclear. There simply isn't much research on this topic, as chemical interactions in the human body are challenging to measure and monitor. Why should you trust me? You might be wondering why, if there's so much misinformation about environmental toxins, my advice is worth trusting. How do you know that what I say is true? To start, every piece of advice I give in this book is backed by my educational training and research. In 2019, I was named Environmental Toxin Expert of the Year by the International Association of Top Professionals. I have a decade of professional experience in holistic nutrition and almost 2 decades of experience educating the public on products and toxins that affect their health and well-being. And the most important reason I always like to point out, I'm a mom who had to help her child. When people reach out to me for help, it's usually for one of 2 reasons. They're experiencing a health issue, like allergies, skin irritation, or tension issues, or they know they need to eliminate toxins in their home, but they don't know how. Most clients have no idea how safe chemicals in their homes can interact to disrupt just about every single function in the body. How could they? In this book, I'll share the highlights you need to know that will help you get started right away on creating a healthier home for you and your family. When I first realized the full scope of harm hiding in everyday products, I was ready to quit. Fine, toxins, you win. If you're feeling furious that you've been consuming nasty chemicals and loading your cabinets with a plethora of toxins, take a deep breath. I did too. Every client I've worked with did the same thing. It's easy to wonder, if everything is bad for us, why bother? If you're listening to this book, my suspicion is that you do want to bother, at least some of the time. For the sake of your health and that of the people you love. If you use safe products most of the time, you don't have to worry about what's in everything all the time. You don't have to toss out everything. It's okay to be mad, though. Let's indulge in a primal scream together. Ugh. Feel better? I do. Now let's take back control. My story. I grew up in the 1980s in Big Rock, Illinois. In our little town just outside Chicago, everyone knew one another. My childhood there was normal and happy. I climbed trees, went for hikes in the woods, and ran next door to play at my grandparents' house. Then, 2 weeks before my 7th birthday, everything changed. I felt a terrible pain in my back and couldn't raise my arm past shoulder height. When I collapsed while trying to pick up our cat, my parents called the pediatrician. Within minutes, we were racing to his office. There's no time to pack, he said. You need to get to the hospital now. Once there, the doctors ran a battery of tests. My parents wondered if I'd even survive the weekend. Soon, my test results came back in. It was a worst-case scenario. I was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia. At the time, the survival rate was 20%. For the next 3 years, I endured chemotherapy, a slew of painful tests, like bone marrow aspirations, spinal taps, and biopsies, as well as experimental treatments and hospitalizations. I also learned I might not be able to have kids. In 4th grade, I finished chemotherapy, and by middle school, I was playing sports and starting to go back to a pretty normal childhood. An important lesson from that time stuck with me. A healthy diet and environment are immensely powerful. My oncologist at that time told me to eat nutritious foods like fruits and vegetables and to avoid processed food. I learned at a young age that hot dogs, chips, and cookies are bad for your health. When my kids were born, thankfully proving my oncologist's predictions about my fertility wrong, I paid close attention to their diet. I chose the healthiest foods and the safest products, or so I thought. In 2006, when my son Eric was 8 years old, his 2nd grade teacher called me and suggested testing him for ADHD. It was tough news, but I wasn't entirely surprised. I'd noticed the symptoms. He tapped his pen incessantly on his desk, he stared out the window, and struggled to follow directions with more than 2 steps. I thought back to the advice my childhood oncologist gave me and wondered, could there be something in our home aggravating Eric's symptoms? I wanted more time to investigate before pursuing tests. I asked Eric's teacher for more time, and she agreed. Then I went berserk. I spent hours on Google looking for things that could have caused his symptoms. Eventually, I discovered that preservatives, such as sodium benzoate, and artificial colors could contribute to the brain fog he was experiencing at school. My heart sank. I felt like it was my fault. Even worse, I didn't know what to do about it. After more research, I learned that every natural product I had in my pantry was full of preservatives, artificial colors, and fake flavors. I felt ashamed and guilty, and I quickly tossed everything out with those ingredients. Soon after making some changes in his diet, there was a noticeable effect in Eric's behavior. Just a few weeks later, he was better able to focus. He woke up with more energy and could pay attention to anything, TV, homework, and lessons in school, for longer periods of time. He didn't fidget as much or get out of his chair as often. Just a few small changes to his environment made a tremendous impact on his life. The next month, I sat down with his teacher again. His attention has significantly improved, she said. I don't see a need to test him for ADHD anymore. I was ecstatic and relieved. Then I had an idea. If Eric's attention issues improved after just a few weeks, imagine the profound impact of small changes over a lifetime. We didn't cure Eric. He was, and still is, an easily distracted kid. We love him exactly the way he is, and he's the first to laugh about those absent-mindedness moments. Diet changes alone won't necessarily make a difference for every child experiencing these kinds of symptoms, nor are they a cure-all. However, I was floored by the results I saw with my son. I'm not at all suggesting that my methods are a magic bullet to eliminate ADHD or other cognitive issues. You should always consult with your doctor and never go off any medication that a physician has recommended without their input. Instead, I see these strategies as a bonus, an important and sometimes missing piece of the puzzle in overall health. After Eric's attention issues improved, I continued my research. I knew there were other families in the same position, and I wanted to help them. I went back to school and got a master's degree and board certification in holistic nutrition. Driven by the idea that small changes can go a long way, I created a business to help families have a slightly greener but significantly healthier lifestyle while still enjoying frozen pizza and bright red lipstick. Now that I'm an environmental health expert, I'm frequently asked to speak on TV shows and the radio. And over time, I realized that after all the hours of research and study, I had become an expert. But most important of all, I'm a mom on a mission. The pitfalls of going too far. Before I developed the methods in this book, I made an ill-fated attempt at being aggressively greener. It didn't work, and it drove my whole family slightly insane. Initially, I started out with small changes to Eric's diet, but soon I got carried away. As I researched and learned more about hidden toxins, I accelerated from a few small changes to a lot of them. Are we ever going to eat hot dogs again? My 4-year-old daughter Lindsay said this to me one night. She blinked up at me over a plate of Brussels sprouts, that night's dinner. Her normally sparkling blue eyes looked sad. Lindsay loves hot dogs. But after I learned they contain nitrates, which are linked to childhood leukemia, I wouldn't let her eat a single one. Picture the scene. During the day, I maniacally tossed out everything in our home I suspected of having harmful toxins. I walked around with a giant trash bag, filling it to the brim with forbidden items, bidding adieu to the offending products. So long, Oreos. I sure did enjoy your creamy filling. Farewell, delicious potato chips. It was fun while it lasted. Popcorn's safe, right? My husband asked one day, chomping on a few tasty kernels. No, it's the worst one. I snatched the bag of popcorn from his hands and added it to the bulging trash bag. His mouth gaped open. Next, I went through the bathrooms. Favorite shampoos and deodorants were added to the trash. At night, while everyone else in my house slept, I Googled information about toxins like a madwoman. The house was dark. I sat on the sofa alone with my worry, staring into the backlight of my laptop. With each click, I grew more paranoid about the dangers lurking in our home. With each study I read, my things to throw out tomorrow list grew longer. Scented candles, fabric softener, soap. Once I finished Googling everything for the evening, I'd whip up a batch of DIY sunscreen or a lotion bar. Suddenly, it was 3 a.m. I'd crash into bed, my husband beside me, and fall asleep. The next day, I'd wake up bleary-eyed and do it all over again. Would you want to live in this house? My family certainly didn't. Heck, I didn't either. I was sleep-deprived, going a wee bit insane, and driving everyone else in my house completely nuts. Oh, and my all-in approach was backfiring. My kids weren't just eating the very processed foods I was working so hard to remove, they were inhaling them like trash compactors.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?